Hello and welcome, Larissa. It's a pleasure to have you as my guest
Thank
today.
you. Thank you so
And
much for having me.
all the way from Romania, too. I have to just point that out. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
you
yeah.
are my first absolute international guest on the show. So thank you so much for
No, I
being
feel
here.
so honored. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask you, what is your favorite thing about your country?
My favorite thing, I think it's definitely nature and the fact that you
Mm,
have the seaside and you also have mountains. You can pick and choose wherever you want to go. So weather is definitely friendly. And we also have 4 seasons, which is great because you
mm.
can go to ski in the winter and then for summer you go to the seaside. It's also very close to Italy, to Spain, to so many gorgeous countries. And we just
Ah,
planned our holiday. Actually, we have two. We split this year's holiday in two. So the first one is in Spain and the second one is in Greece. So many
not
advantages, right?
so many advantages. I'm all the way in Miami, Florida, which is very far from any other part of the
Gorgeous.
United States. Just to get out of Florida is a good 8 hours, and we don't get the seasons here. So I do try to seek out vacations when I can maybe go see a season or two during the year. But I want to begin, as I always do with all of my guests, asking you what it is that you are grateful for in this particular day.
Today. Um, Today was day number 40 for me going outside in the nature and doing 10K steps.
Oh,
Just one
wonderful.
of the things I am grateful for. And can I say another one? Can I mention another
Sure,
one? There is my
absolutely.
best
The
friend
more
is
the
here
merrier.
with me. Yeah, my best friend is here with me. She's in the other room. And she came for a sleepover and we are in our 40s, and she was like, let's do this, let's put some music,
Of
let's watch some Netflix.
course.
Yeah, so we are having fun. My boyfriend is a surgeon, so he's on duty this night, over the night, so she
So
was
it's
like,
a
I'm gonna be,
girls'
yeah.
night out.
Yeah, exactly. My son is also in the house, which is we cannot do anything we would do normally do,
Right.
like, I don't know, having a glass or two glasses of rosé maybe, but it's still fun. So at least two things I am grateful for,
I
you see.
love that. I love the energy and the vitality, which is part of what this episode is about. I think honoring that sort of childlike happiness and energy within us. So, I want if you could begin by telling us a little bit about your story because I know it is unique and I connected to it right away. And how did you arrive at the work that you do today, which is very specialized?
It's very specialized, and I actually started in another domain, completely different, I would say, which is communication and public relations. I was running a
Okay.
super successful agency, public relation agency here in Romania for a very long time, almost 15 years. And
Wow.
then back in 2009, I went through two major events, or I had to deal or face two major events. One was my divorce, and
Mm,
it was unexpected. And then I was also misdiagnosed with thyroid cancer. And then
incredible.
the next step for I chose back then was to leave Romania.
Mm.
I still have a very very good friend, and we went to Malaysia in the jungle. So I disconnected from everything, from my job, from technology,
Wow.
and for 2 months I had this. I like to call it mirror moment, like true
Mm.
mirror moment, in
Mhm.
which I ask myself, what do I want to do with my life? And first of all, why, what I did in the first place, and why I'm here today with this unpleasant divorce, and then my health is not in the right place. So what can I do?
Mm.
And back then, I took the decision to actually change the domain. It took me a few years, a few good years to
Yes.
actually make the shift, the actual shift. So I went back to school. The first certification was in 2013, and then I took the one from Cornell University, and then I moved to precision
Wow.
nutrition. So I
Little by little.
and
Yeah.
I'm still there. I love to learn. Learning is one of my values.
Same
So
here.
yeah, so I love to discover new things, to actually, and this is also part of epigenetics, part of what I do. I like to uncover the root cause. I like to
Mm.
actually discover the real problem, not just to scratch the surface. And this is what epigenetics helped me, because initially I started to or I positioned myself as a nutrition coach, health and nutrition coach, and then I moved into sleep. I was like, okay, sleep is also a very, very
Yes,
important factor, health factor. It's not only
absolutely.
nutrition. So let's dive into that and see what's the connection between nutrition and sleep, and why it's so important when we want to lose weight. And then I moved into epigenetics. So it was an interesting journey. This is what I
So
can share with
I
you.
want to
And
I want to pause
please.
1 second there because I've taken some solo vacations over the years to beautiful
Ah,
places here in the United States, but never a 2 month away in a place like Malaysia. I just
mhm.
want to unpack that just for a little bit. What did that time alone do for you? Obviously, it brought you a lot of clarity, but um, what else? What else really came out of that? And for you, that
I
specific
think it
time
was the first time I did that. I took that time alone.
for
I was
yourself.
so much, yes, I was so much into the race.
Hmm.
Um, and I like to say I'm in the process of finalizing my book also, so I'm going to launch my book very
Wonderful.
soon. And this story is actually part of my book. And in the book, and also here, I would like to share the same thing. Everything was like, with started with the word over.
Mm,
Overworking, over
yes.
consuming, over stressed. So the over was there. And for the first time, I actually took a few steps back, and I had a very thorough look at what was going on actually in my life.
Right.
And it turned out even the divorce was a blessing
Mm,
in the end, but it was hard, it was painful back then.
yes.
And I think that specific environment, the jungle, lack of technology,
Yeah.
even electricity, we were
Oh,
in the
wow.
middle of jungle. We had no bathroom. I should
Oh my
say that.
goodness.
Yeah, we were taking the shower in the jungle. So it was interesting
Yes.
to be there for 2 months. In the same time, it was the shock was so
Mm,
big for me, the difference between the life I was living
yes.
and what I found there, that it literally made me look in a very honest and raw, if I can call it like
Yes.
that,
And that's
way
not
at my life.
easy.
It's
That's
not.
not easy.
It's not.
But it's so
It's not.
necessary because look at where it brought you.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the moment when I said, I'm gonna do my best,
Mm,
or the best I can, to help as many women as possible to avert that type of crisis.
yeah.
It was a crisis. It was
Mm-hmm.
if you want, an early midlife crisis. And this is what I do today. I work with women
Yes.
in their 40s and beyond,
Yeah.
and I help them, literally guide them through this process. This is the reason why the only program I sell, Glorious 40, is for, even the name of the program is it's
I
very
love
niche,
it.
and I
Yes.
had the courage to actually go
To
very
go
niche
there.
and do that, and I love what I do every single day.
Yeah. You can tell. It just, I mean, just you obviously glow from within and on the outside as I'm seeing here. And we're going to talk about your program a little bit at the end, but I want to begin with your area of expertise that I don't think that many people know about, and that is epigenetics.
Mhm.
And for those who haven't heard of what it is, if you could just give us a little description, and why is it that you feel that it's the future of healthcare?
I will explain, and I usually like to explain epigenetics in very simple words,
Yes,
because
please.
we can go, yeah,
For us
I could
non-scientist
talk
people.
about, yeah, exactly. I could talk about epigenetics for so long. So epigenetics is the study of how our behavior, everyday behavior, and also our environment can cause changes, specific changes in our body that affect the way our genes work.
Mhm.
And unlike genetic changes, the epi is coming from above, so it's above genetic. So
Okay.
unlike the genetic changes, the epigenetic changes are reversible,
Hmm.
which is a huge opportunity for us. because they don't change our DNA sequence, but they can change how our body reads our DNA sequence. Which is interesting because it's almost as if we have a remote control in our hands, metaphorically, of course.
Right.
But we have the power to turn things, or most of the things, around when it comes to our health. So it's a great opportunity, and it's probably the most revolutionary tool for our health. And we will, I'm sure we are going to hear about epigenetics more and more in the future.
Right.
And what epigenetics does, and this is why I'm so passionate about it, it can literally solve the root cause. So instead of focusing on the symptom, instead of going into another trial and error, or trying another lotion, potion, pill, supplement, diet, and so on, we go to the root cause, solve the root cause, and then the symptom is not going to be back. So in other words, it gives us the opportunity to personalize the process, and also accelerate and shorten the process. So instead of spending months or years into a trial and error type of process, we go to the root cause, we solve the root cause, and then we just put on rinse and repeat what's good for us. And this is why I use genetic testing in my intervention plans. So, and it's the best epigenetic test available right now. It's a 200 pages test. Yeah, it's a very thorough test. It's a very
Incredible.
deep, and it gives us the right type of information, including skincare. So skincare is a big chapter in this genetic test, and then gut health, hormones, diet, supplements, movement, the right movement for us. There are so many ways we can move our body, but for some of us, for example, in my case, cardio type of movement is not the right one for me because it triggers inflammation in my body. So I avoid that, and I only take into account high intensity training, and I also take into account or do Pilates. So this combination is great. So this is in a few sentences what epigenetics can do. So it's pretty amazing. It's a revolutionary domain again, and from my perspective is the future of health, because personalization, it's what we need from my perspective.
I was going to say, as I mentioned to you earlier, I've been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease recently, which I always considered myself a healthy person. And I decided to go with a functional medical doctor because I felt that, thank you, I find that medicine these days is very much a one size fits all, exactly what I was hearing you say. You know, just take this pill, that'll fix this. But you need to kind of go down all the different layers to find out exactly, where you're at. So I thank you for sharing that with us. And that's an important future thing that is in place. So
yeah, and sometimes just observing or seeing a certain diet, for example, one of our friends is using, and because they get results, we think it's right for us. I'm not into diets at all. I don't promote that.
It's a lifestyle is what I've seen now.
It's definitely a lifestyle, and sometimes we might feel like just by going to Google, and it's so much information, and we are so confused about what's out there. And most of my clients are sharing this with me. I am so confused. I don't know what type of supplements. I don't know what to eat anymore. I am literally confused about that.
So that's where that report really just zeroes in on every individual.
Exactly. And we also have our own app. And this is an app we built exclusively for our clients. They have lifetime access to this app. So inside the app, we have not only the genetic data, but also the epigenetic recommendations we do. And then they also have a personalized meal guide. They also have a personalized movement regimen for themselves. So it's a gold mine, we like to say. And the report itself, it's like a body Bible. We like to call it like that. It's like a user's manual. And you only do this once, and then you just implement the strategy. You put it on rinse and repeat. It's the right one for you because our DNA doesn't lie, and it's definitely the right thing to do. from my
Yeah.
perspective at least. And I don't want to sound biased. It's
No,
really,
absolutely. It's taking care of ourselves from the inside out, which is
yeah.
so important. Absolutely. And you're also a certified sleep coach, which you mentioned before. And I know that you discuss the importance of getting that good night's rest in just in our lives. And I feel so many of us don't. But you say that the quality of our sleep is really not a nighttime routine, but more something that starts in the morning. If you could tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah. Well, I would start by saying the fact that sleep is our best friend, or one of the
Yes,
best friends when it comes to
I'll say
our
that.
health. And our sleep hygiene starts in the morning. And this is something we don't talk enough about.
Mm-mm.
And one of the things happening these days, simply because the world we live in, there is so much noise, we are so distracted with so many screens, so it's pretty
Mhm.
difficult to actually follow and honor our biological clock
Right.
as our ancestors used to do before. And our days are literally subject to hundreds of rhythms.
Mm.
And the most important rhythm is the one from waking to sleeping. This wake sleep cycle, we don't
Yes.
honor and respect anymore, unfortunately. And these functions are genetically programmed and are deeply rooted in our brain as well. This is
Hmm.
the reason why we need to pay attention to certain hormones released by our body during certain times of the day. This is the reason why I said the sleep hygiene actually starts in the morning, and I
In the
will
morning.
explain in a minute why. Now, depending on the time of the day, our body are releasing these specific chemicals. Uh, I'm not going deeper into that, but there are specific chemicals, body chemicals, if I can call them like that generically, that influence our level of alertness and also our sleep.
Okay.
Um, the one of the easiest strategies for every woman dealing with sleep issues or having sleep issues, and when we say issues, there are two things there: the quality of our sleep and the quantity.
Right.
And oftentimes we only focus on the quantity. I only slept 5 hours or 6 hours or 4 hours. I hope not. And we don't focus enough on the quality of our sleep. This is, by the way, the device I'm wearing on my finger is a device, an amazing device I wear for a few years. It's called Aura. It's a ring, giving me the opportunity to read amazing analytics in regards to what's going on during my sleep.
Wow.
Quality, from the
Quality.
quality perspective, not only quantity. Now, going back to the strategy I usually start with when it comes to the quality of my client's sleep, getting outside, being exposed to natural light, so that our body will start producing serotonin. This is also called the happiness hormone.
Yeah.
Is one of the simplest, easiest strategy. It's not, of course, the only strategy, but
Right.
it's the first, or one of the first three at least, I recommend to my clients. You also get your steps. You get the opportunity to do your steps, whether
So
they are
a
7 or
simple
10K.
walk in the morning is what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah, the ideal time for that would be, and this is the link, or the very, very strong connection to our biological rhythms. The ideal timing would be between 6:30 and 8 a.m. Even
Okay.
if we don't manage to go outside up until 8 a.m., it's good to do it even after that
Yeah.
specific timing. And the reason for that is the fact that outside lightning, it's 100 times more brighter than any indoor
Of
lightning.
course.
And there is also, and it's I'm following lots of studies on light therapy, so-called light therapy, natural light therapy, and all these studies are saying the same thing or showing the same thing: the fact that when we do that, we manage to actually put back in balance some other hormones, such as cortisol.
Mm.
Cortisol, who usually, in the morning, the peak, the highest level of cortisol we have is in the morning around 7 a.m. And then melatonin is another important hormone. It's also called sleep hormone. So these hormones have a very tight, they're very strong connected one with another. And then serotonin is the wonder hormone for our sleep. We only need to do this for 30 minutes, so we don't need to stay outside for a very long time. What's important is to do it, and the more we do this, the more we will actually put our sleep back into balance, or we will feel more rested while we sleep. And there are, of course, some other important steps or things we should take into account. So it doesn't mean the evening routine is not important. It just means the fact that we should ideally start in the morning in order to fix our sleep. So one of the underestimated, or the one of the steps in the strategy we underestimate is the level of humidity in the bedroom, or the temperature in our bedroom. So humidity is something that, especially these days, especially during summer, when we use a lot air conditioning and the air is not clean enough, we can check. So that's my first recommendation. We need to know the level of humidity. The best one would be, or the best level, or the ideal level, sorry, is between 30% and 50%. And then when it comes to temperature, 17 degrees Celsius would be the ideal room temperature. It's a little cold, but that's perfect for our body. Sleeping in a complete dark bedroom, another thing we underestimate. It's so important.
To me, it has to be completely dark. Even just like when I go to hotels, and that little, they have an alarm clock next to the bed it's a very bright, numbers. I have to throw a little towel or something over it, because the light does bother me. So it's interesting you say that. Such great advice. Thank you for those ideas. Larisa, most of my audience I would say is women, and women that are 34, 35 and above. And I know that hormones really play a huge role in our lives as women. So I'd like for you to talk a little bit about, you mentioned some when it came to sleep, but the role that just like an imbalance in hormones plays in our lives as women. And how do we even know? How do we even know we have an imbalance? Like, what would be some of the signs for us?
Yeah, and we also, I would say, we talk about hormones and hormones imbalances for a few years, maybe a decade. So this is a very interesting subject, and it makes me sad in a way that we don't talk enough about hormones, and women doesn't have now the information is available, of course, but from my perspective, hormones and the importance of our bodies, certain hormones, because there are 77 plus hormones in our body. Not all of them are important. I would say 7, probably 9 are the ones that are key for our body. Yeah, they are definitely important, and I can mention some of them. They are also called metabolic hormones. So those are important, and from my perspective, we should put this in the schools. We should learn about this, even not only the girls in the schools, but everyone. It's so important for everyone to understand which hormones are responsible for our sleep, for example, and also for specifically for women in their 40s and beyond, and even before that, because we can prepare, we can do some prevention in regards to what's going to happen in our 40s and beyond. And what's usually happening with our body is the fact that we lose some of these hormones. So they become imbalanced also because we lose some of them. And aging accelerates in our 40s. That's something we don't like to hear, but it's also true. So we lose hormones, we lose muscle mass. We also start having some issues with our sleep. We also
weight gain.
weight gain and more
Yeah.
cravings,
Yes.
specifically cravings for carbohydrates, and all
Carbohydrates.
these, the refined ones
Right.
specifically. Yeah, so our hormones, to explain it in a few sentences, and obviously in simple words, they dictate nearly all aspects of fat loss, also where we store, or our body stores the fat, also how much fat is going to store. Cravings, appetite are also very much influenced by our hormones, gut bacteria as well,
Mm.
and also certain addictive patterns to specific foods.
Wow.
Now, the most common hormonal imbalances are very much influenced by our genetics. This is the reason why a big chapter inside the genetic report we use is about hormones. So genetics, lifestyle choices, and this is an opportunity for everyone to actually turn things around. Aging, I mentioned earlier the fact that in our 40s we start losing certain hormones, and it's not the same for everyone. Of course, we are very different. Nutrition, so lifestyle choices, nutrition included. Environmental toxins, this is another
Yes.
one. Stress, when we are
Yeah.
super stressed or overly stressed, and we keep this level of stress elevated for too long.
Yes.
So all these are very much responsible for our hormonal imbalances. Now, how can we say we, first of all, when we have a look in the mirror, there are two things. We have a look in the mirror and we don't recognize our body
Yeah.
anymore. So that's one. And then we also don't recognize, or we don't like how we feel. The level of energy is not the same. We are not as vital as before. So we simply sleep issues as well. Now, again, going back to the 7 metabolic hormones, these issues are not the same for every single woman.
Right. Of course.
Some of us are dealing with sleep issues. Some of us are dealing with some extra weight or extra pounds. And for some women, it's simply the fact that they cannot manage their stress as before.
Mm-hmm.
For example, high cortisol, I will just give you a few examples. High cortisol will or would cause someone to feel both tired and wired, and would also prompt their body to store fuel or fat in places that we don't really like.
Like the stomach, I'm sure.
Exactly, yeah, the
And on
belly,
the
and then
sides.
yeah, exactly. Low cortisol, so this is high cortisol. Low cortisol, this could be also a long-term consequence of high cortisol. There are women who also have high and low in the same time, and when we have low level of cortisol, we feel exhausted. This is the way we feel exhausted, we feel tired, we feel drained. So this is another insight I can give in regards to cortisol specifically. And then we can have low progesterone. This can cause night sweats and sleepless nights and irregular menstrual cycles, or high estrogen, for example. High estrogen usually or can develop breast tenderness, for example. And it's also one of the ones that, from my perspective, need to be checked, because it's also could be a cause for breast cancer.
Breast
So
cancer.
we need to pay
Absolutely.
attention to high estrogen. Low estrogen also, mood swings, lack of libido, lots of vagina dryness, for example. This is something that I hear a lot from my clients in their 40s and beyond. Their inability to be focused or stay focused on a certain task.
Like that brain fog.
Yeah. And then thyroid. This is
Mm.
another common hormone we need to deal with. Low thyroid, I will just give this example as the last one. So low thyroid can cause decreased in our mental acuity, fatigue, also weight gain, sometimes constipation, So there are lots of symptoms, and the best way for every woman would be to, I mean, the first step would be to check whether or not these hormones are out of balance. And then the good news, I also want to give the good news, because there is a huge good news. We can reset these hormones. And for each of these hormones I mentioned, any of the 7 metabolic hormones, actually, we only need 3 days to reset those hormones
Wow,
with
that's
diet.
amazing.
Diet and sometimes specific supplements, but
Sure.
it's not in 3 days we can go back to square one. Of course, it's important what we do after, because if we
Yes.
continue to, I don't know, to consume lots of coffee, caffeine is very much linked with cortisol, for example, elevated level of
Yes.
cortisol. So if we go back to our old habits, this will not help anyone. But the good news is the fact that we can definitely reset those hormones, which is great, because we have that remote control in our hand. If we know what to do, things are definitely good.
I think from what I'm really paying attention to and gathering from what you said is, you could probably provide a list of, here are all the things that if you're feeling this and that, it could be this. But at the same time, it's just about really paying attention to our bodies when we're off, when we start feeling more tired than usual, or we're experiencing certain things that you mentioned. It's doing something about it. It's not just saying, oh, I'm tired, or oh, I'm this, or oh, I'm not feeling well here, and moving on with life. Take a pause
Yeah,
and take care of yourself and go
yeah,
see a specialist, whether someone like yourself or even just your general primary doctor or functional medical doctor, to get some tests done to at least give us baselines, right, of where we are, and at least have some data in front of us to move forward in life with it. I think information is power, like you said before. Google University is a lot to take in, but in speaking to the right specialist, I think we can have like a plan of action, and
yeah,
that's a gold mine in our hands to take care of ourselves. So I'm
yeah.
glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, and I like to use a metaphor for hormones. It's almost, it's the same with our car getting, or our getting a flat tire.
Yeah,
We fix it, right? We don't drive around 10,000 miles, ruining the car and polluting the environment. And the same should be with our metabolism as well. The reason why they are called metabolic hormones is because they have a big saying on the way our metabolism functions. So it's broken. It's literally broken, and we need to fix that. And
fix
it's
it.
pretty easily. It's easy to fix it. That's the good news. Now, of course, it requires some discipline. It requires from us some, as you said,
Yes.
some attention, some me time. Some, we cannot, when we run around and we are always stressed and we think everything is important. One of the things we do
Yes.
in my program, the first 3 months, by the way, are all about mindset,
I was going to
because
say,
mindset
a
is
big
everything.
mindset change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So if they don't shift their mindset
Yeah.
into prioritizing themselves and truly believing they are important, and not everything is important, but we are important for sure. We need to be on the top of our to-do list every single day. um, it's not easy. It's not easy because we were raised by a certain generation of moms, and they were
Yes.
martyrs, and they used to
Yes.
do everything for everyone. So this is what they modeled for us. So it's
Right.
definitely not an overnight solution, but we can there are so many ways we can shift the mindset and go back to ourselves and
Sure.
heal
And
ourselves.
realizing that, if wherever you're at, you can start there, right?
Exactly.
And it's okay. I think starting, not, you don't have to start perfect. Just start with one aspect of your diet, or one aspect of your movement, or one aspect of, regulating your sleep, and little by little add something new in, to be able to just, get yourself all in order. But for some
Yeah.
people, I know it seems very overwhelming. Oh, there's no way I can meal prep, or there's no way I can go to the gym all the days. Well, you don't really have to. There's different ways to approach this. So
I don't go to the gym, for example. I take my steps, do my steps every single morning. This is the first thing I do. I just apply sunscreen,
yeah.
have a cup of water, and go outside. And And then I do a few workouts a week. I do them at home, so I don't
Mhm.
travel to the gym. Because I don't want to waste that time. It's an important
Sure.
time for me. And one of the probably I put this on rinse and repeat always in my program and with my clients. I tell them they should only focus on one habit at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
many times when we go back to this, into this, or we decide we are going to actually
Yeah, change.
start this journey and change, we want to jump on everything. We want to move our body every day, do the meal prep, fix the sleep, drink enough water, and it's not working. It's overwhelming. Of course, it's overwhelming. So I
And then
say,
it's easy to give up,
very easy to
right?
give up. Yeah, and it's our brain is there resisting the change because it
Yeah.
perceives it as danger. It's something new, so it's not
I don't
good.
like
Bad
it.
news here. Yeah, and I won't support this. So I always say 1K steps is good enough, even 500 steps. We don't need to
Yeah.
start with 10K. We don't need to start with 3 workouts a week. We don't need to start with all the meals healthy
Right.
or clean. We can
Just
start
one.
with, yeah, just one breakfast or dinner or maybe one snack a day. And it's, I always say it's a 6 months, at least a 6 month journey, if not a year long journey. This is the reason why the program we have is 1 year. It's not a quick fix. It's not a 3 months. And I am very honest about that. You will not fix anything in a few weeks. I mean, if you really want to reset your body and your health, you really need some time. Yeah.
You need to be invested. And I love that your program is not about lotions and potions. It's not
No, no.
about, getting rid of wrinkles, and aging in that sense is how we think about it. It's really about, really turning back the
Cellular
clock from
aging. Yeah,
within, cellular
exactly.
aging.
Yeah, yeah. And
Exactly.
getting back 10 years of vitality, not 10 years with Photoshop or surgery.
Yeah.
It's
Which is
definitely,
so easy these days.
yeah, yeah.
Talk to us, because we've talked a little bit about diet, but you have a certain term that you call fuel eating,
Hmm.
and how important, I can't stress this enough as I'm living it in my own life right now, how nutrition impacts our health and our well-being.
Hmm. Yeah, I like to call fuel eating. It's actually, there are 4 types of eating, and I talk to my clients, and not only to my clients. For a few years, I went to schools. I was a Jamie Oliver ambassador, so I went to schools and I worked with kids, and I explained this to them also. So fuel eating is functional eating, if I can call it like that, is what our body needs as a primary fuel or type of fuel.
Right.
And ideally, we should keep this or follow this type of eating, which we can call clean eating, or being focused on whole foods generally, in 80% of the time. I don't believe in extremes.
Mm,
And
I
there
like
is
that.
another term called joy eating. So we can
Ah,
practice joy eating in 20% of our time, which means 2 meals a week, sometimes 2 meals and a snack a week. And this is very freeing for our brain, because if we say you are never allowed to have a cake, or you are never
yeah.
allowed to have bread or anything like that, by the way, I'm not at all in favor of actually ditching a food group completely. So carbs are important. We talk about complex carbs, of course, certain type of carbs, not refined carbs, but they are important. We need
Yes.
all of the food groups, or all of the macronutrients. So fuel eating, joy eating. And then there are 2 other types of eating. One is storm eating. Storm eating is when we eat or use food as a cop out for
Mm,
our emotional storms.
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is just because we are not equipped sometimes to identify, label, and process the
Sure.
emotions. We
Yeah.
use food as a cop out. So this is
Hmm.
storm eating, and it passes. Like any other storm. It goes away. Now, what's important here is to actually solve the root cause, because if we don't solve the root cause, if we don't process the emotions, if we don't, or the feelings, we don't understand them, they will come back over and over. We cannot put
And
them
then you
under the
storm
rug.
eat all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the storm eat, and the other one is called fog eating. And fog eating is when we do something else, driving, watching TV, sometimes maybe talking to someone, and eat just because it's not even habitual. We are not connected to the plate and what's on the plate with our food. We don't feel or sense the food. Our mind, our brain is completely somewhere else.
Somewhere else.
Yeah. So, and studies show the fact that we consume it's a significant percentage, like 30% or 30+% of food we actually consume without knowing, without being aware of, which is not nice. It's a big percentage,
No,
right?
I didn't
So we
know
can,
this. This is so interesting. I mean, I guess I've experienced all of them at one point or another, but I love that they each have a name.
Yeah, so this is the fog eating. So I usually talk about fuel and joy, and less about fog and storm. I mean, I mentioned them, but ideally they shouldn't be part of our life. And of course, there is a big conversation about emotional eating and what we can do there. And it looks like, and I love studies, as you can say. I come back with another one. So there is an interesting study showing the fact that 77% of overweight women are actually emotional eaters, which is interesting. It's interesting because we practice that, and especially in the last few years with COVID and everything, and especially some of my clients are obviously from this area of the world, and we dealt with COVID and still dealing with it. It's not over, and then we also have the Ukraine war across the border, so it's not easy. It's definitely not easy.
There's a lot happening, and
a lot to process.
It's very easy to turn to food in the wrong way.
The good news is that with the right tools, it's literally about that. I know it might sound like very practical and very easy. It is. It's all about watching our thoughts, and then writing those thoughts, like observing. There is a self-coaching model, it's called. There is a very easy structure I teach my clients to follow when they do this, and we have the opportunity to actually rewrite our thoughts so that we can trigger different emotions. So it's not that complicated, but of course we need some support for that. It's something our parents were not able to explain to us, or teachers, so but it's never too late to learn these things.
Now, it's true. It's very, very much true. And I always like to say that there's power in the pause. So if we can just pause long enough and kind of pay attention to the thought, we can really shift things in a positive way versus a negative way. Larisa, as an aging specialist as well, what would you say would be, and I know we've talked a little bit about it, if you could just condense it, some of the culprits, right, in our daily diets or lifestyle that cause us to age quicker from the inside out? Obviously, sleep was one of them. What else can you add in there?
Lack of hydration. This is another, and especially for another important health factor. Hydration, it's something, again, so simple. We go back to the simple habits we lost somehow, or we simply, we instead of going back and revisiting them, we thought some other strategies, more complex strategies, are actually important, and it's not true. It's about simplicity. It's about going back to the root, or to square one, and starting to actually follow simple steps. And this is what I love to do with my clients. I teach them how to actually assess how much calories they need without complex calculators or online calculators or anything like that. How much proteins, without being obsessed about macros and using fancy apps and stuff like that. And one simple thing, for example, because I mentioned proteins, is to base our meals, or start thinking about our meals with having a protein in mind first. So this is a very simple thing we can do. And then I mentioned hydration. we talked about fuel eating, joy eating. So eating, clean eating is obviously something so important. And one thing I talk about, and I am pretty famous, it's probably not the right word, about, is the so-called whites.
Yes.
So I call whites the sugar. Well, when I say whites, I mean sugar, or I refer to sugar. I refer to white flour and to dairy products. Now, with dairy products, it's an interesting conversation, because for some women, I can consume dairy products, for example. I have no issue with that. Yeah, I can, and I only you consume a few of them, and a few times a week. Because they still trigger inflammation. Even if someone is not lactose intolerant, for example, or is not predisposed to become lactose intolerant, we can still open a conversation about inflammation. So whites are very much linked with aging, or accelerate aging,
because of inflammation, right?
Because of that so-called silent inflammation, or chronic inflammation. And that's like a fire. We don't see it. It's not like acute inflammation. It's not the same as when what
you
example
have something
maybe when we cut our finger or something like that happens. So it's not that type of inflammation. It's this is the reason why it's called silent. It's almost like a burning fire inside our body, and it creates somehow the stage for certain diseases. So we need to pay attention to that. And this is the reason why I talk about dairy products and consuming them in moderation. It doesn't mean we never touch them. Of course, if someone is intolerant, it's another conversation that we need to be mindful. There are so many healthy options when it comes to food, especially these days. We have access to so many fruits and veggies and nuts and fish and seafood and so on. So it's not even difficult. We just need to be a little bit creative about that. And you mentioned meal prep earlier, so we don't even need to overly complicate that with the meal prep. And I also say my clients, because I work mainly with executives and entrepreneurs, I tell them there is always you always have the option to have your food delivered by a healthy
so many options out there too,
or supplier. These days you really have access to that, and you don't need to do it every single day. You can do it 3 times a week, especially if you work a lot. There are 12 hours in the day in which you work on your business. So, and we also need to take care of our kids. So there are lots of things on our plate, right? So it would be ideal to cook, but if the time is not there, the mood is not there, the emotional state, not the mood necessarily, is not there, don't feel guilty about that. Because some of my clients were like, yeah, but I feel guilty to order food. What my husband would say, or even my kids, because mom is not cooking. Well, between eating unhealthy and actually ordering some healthy food, I think the second one is definitely something that
I think the most important thing is for the family to sit together at dinner anyway. Doesn't matter, obviously, as opposed to just everybody in a different place. That's that's an important part of it.
And it's a simple strategy. It's not even complicated to honor one of the meals in the day.
That makes sense. Just to, again, simplify some of the things and not get into our heads too much about what we're doing right or what we're doing wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
We've talked a little bit about your program, but I want you to tell us about this Glorious, Glow spelled GLOW, which I love, Glorious 40. And who is it for? And how does it kind of help reverse those 10 years of our aging clock, as you say?
Glorious 40 is a 12-month, I mentioned this earlier, it's a 12-month journey. It's a total body beauty makeover. And the outcome of this journey or this makeover at the end of those 12 months is to look and feel 10 years younger. And when I say look, I don't mean or I don't refer to wrinkles, or
Right.
it's the, of course, we see that type of outcome as well, but we don't focus on so much on lotions and potions. We focus on cellular aging and how we can actually change our biological age. We cannot change the chronological one, obviously,
Right.
what's on our ID, but we can always turn back the clock on our biological clock. So this is where I like to say, or to describe the program as the place where precision medicine meets precision beauty.
Love it.
So there are 12 months in which we literally revamp every part of a woman's lifestyle, so that we can bring at the surface the most healthy and vibrant and beautiful version of herself.
Wonderful.
And we also use my signature age reversal methodology. This is called BODYOLOGY. It's also the name of of our app, BODYOLOGY DNA, and it's based on 6 pillars of timeless beauty. We like to call them timeless beauty. So we start by decoding the DNA using the report I mentioned earlier. Yeah. And this is an algorithm we created a few years ago. We collaborated with the most prestigious researchers and doctors and scientists from Switzerland in order to get to this breakthrough DNA sequencing test. So we start with that, and then we dive into the following topics. Shape, this is all about our body, movement, hydration, diet. Sleep, this is the second topic. Skin. Smile is all about stress management. Style, personal style, we also go into that, because sometimes just because we think or we feel, not think, but we feel older in our 40s, we give up on that, and we don't pay so much attention to style anymore. And there are some certain tips and tricks and very interesting things we can do so that we look younger by wearing and using our best colors, for example, is one of the things we do inside this specific module. So we help and support everyone to get to their best colors, and then to pick the best shapes, the best type of
clothes, wardrobe
for their
for
shape.
your shape.
Yeah, for their shape. So it's almost like a streamlined process and a declutter process for their wardrobe, so that they will get to the best version of themselves. And we also have a guest there, a personal stylist, who's guiding everyone into that. And then sexuality. This is the last topic, and it's not the last, as importance. It's definitely very important. And by sexuality, I mean sexual health. So it's all about what's going on with our body, what's going on with our libido. We talk about Kegel exercises. We talk about what and how we can take care of our sexuality in our 40s and beyond. So these are the 6 topics.
Amazing.
And of course, coaching is very heavy.
Yes,
the 12 months. So we have the assessment, we have the learning part, the education part or pillar, and then we also have the coaching and accountability. So this is the program.
Sounds super thorough. That's really amazing. Great work on that. I'm sure that took you many years, or to just bring all of that together. But it sounds like it's extremely individualized for those that decide to come on. Larisa, every guest answers this last question, and it is, what has been a moment of clarity for you, and what did it teach you in your life? And I'm sure you've had many.
Yeah. I would say the trip in Malaysia and those 2 months spent in the jungle. It was definitely a teaching moment, and it was the moment when I took the decision to do something else, something more meaningful.
Right.
And that specific moment is very much linked with what happened 3 years ago, when I took the decision to niche myself and only work with women. Before that, I was working with professional athletes, I was working with kids, so I wasn't so niched. And then 3 years ago, I it was a bold decision, I should say, because sometimes as experts we are afraid to go
Yeah.
so narrow. And
Sure.
I was like, this is my only card and I'm gonna bet on this card.
Good
And
for
it was
you.
the best decision of my
Yes.
life.
You listen to your intuition, it seems.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And we should all do more of that every single day. Larissa, it has been such a pleasure to have this conversation with you. I leave with so much information. You truly are a wealth of knowledge in all of your areas of expertise. And I thank you for taking the time all the way from Romania to be
Yeah,
here with
thank you
us
so much.
today. So thank you so much. For you, the listener, thank you for joining Larissa and I for this episode. I hope it sparked the insight within. And to learn more about Larissa, you can go to glow.larisapetrini.com or connect with her on social media. And you can find Larissa at Larisa Petrini on Instagram and Twitter, or join her on Facebook at Larisa Petrini, at Larissa.Petrini, sorry, on Facebook. So be sure to subscribe too, so that you never miss an episode. As always, my friends, I send you love and light. May your cup be full and overflowing.